Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. We are so close to episode 50. You know, that's the wrap up of this season. I am so excited. Today we are on episode 44, and my guest today is Keabetswe Ncube from Pretoria in South Africa. In this episode, we learned that getting into science was a very natural thing for her, as she was born in a science and very agricultural family. Keabetswe, or rather Kea, attributes the major influence into getting into this field of STEM was her mom, who was a life science teacher. Currently, Kea is a PhD candidate in genetics. Her research focus is on gene expression, profiling for growth, and carcass genetics of goats. Yes, you heard right, goats. She tells us more about this work, especially how she ended up working on goats, which is her unique selling point. Further, we discuss her journey into opening her own company called Kea Ncube Agri Services, where this is a business that offers scientific solutions to agricultural problems. Lastly, we discuss with Kea how she balances all of her projects and how she has reached all of these pinnacles of success in her life. Tune in to hear all about this and so much more. Let's go. Hi, Kea. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for having me with you on this show.
It is an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited to get to know more about you and everything that you do. So we're just going to dive right in. Can you give us a brief introduction about who Kea is so that everybody can get to know you a little bit better?
Kea, in full, it's Keabetswe, and I'm 32 years old, South African origin, and I'm pursuing a doctoral degree, or as we call it, PhD in genetics.
Oh, fantastic. That's really lovely. So before we get into everything that you do, Kea, I always just like to get to know my guests away from the science. So I just wanted to find out, the age-old question, are you a dog or cat person, and why?
I'm definitely a dog person. Cats, I have childhood trauma from cats. They are there's this funny thing with cats. We grew up around a lot of animals, and then at home the cat would disappear for like a year, and it comes back with kittens, and I'm like, this is one mysterious pet. And the other time when I decided that I'm done with cats, so my dad brought a cat at home, and we kept it in its little house, and I went there to feed it, and it just wanted to scratch me, and I'm like, how dare you? I brought food.
Oh man!
I'm like, I brought you food, and you want to kill me with your claws. That's why I don't like cats. I won't have cats. My kids won't have cats. My husband won't have a cat. So
no cats at all.
No cats at all. But dogs are perfect.
Yeah.
They're affectionate and friendly, and so I love them, and I've always had the best dogs at home. So so
Kea, as we're reflecting on your childhood, I just want to find out then, how did you actually get into this field of science? Was it always something that you wanted to do, or was it one of those things that kind of just happened?
I'll say it happened. I was born into a scientific family, if I'd put it that way. So doing something different felt unnatural. And my dad was into linguistics, and then my mother was the one in the science field, but everybody else was doing science. My sisters were doing science. So I grew up in that environment, and also being raised by a very agricultural family, So
Yeah.
I was more drawn. I would say my first influence or my first contact with science was my mom, because she was a biology teacher and she also did agriculture. And as the years went by, she taught life sciences. So I was born into science, and that's what I knew, and that's what felt natural. I don't know how to explain. It's like my eyes opened and I was like, yeah, science is cool. Well, this is how we go.
Mm.
But my biggest influence was my mother, because I spent too much time with her. When she was preparing her lessons, I used to read her biology books. By the time I was in primary school, I knew high school biology. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's fantastic, that your mom played such a significant role. It's quite interesting, sometimes when your parents are one thing, you tend to run away from that field. So I know with me, like my parents, like most of my moms and my aunts, they're in the medical field. And I was like, nope. I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
So it's quite great that you continue to carry on that torch. So how then, you mentioned that you had that a little bit of the agricultural background at home. So take us through how you journeyed from, for example, undergrad up until your PhD, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Okay, so from high school, I did my undergraduate with Tshwane University of Technology, where I did my diploma and bachelor's, and Bachelor of Technology in Biotechnology. Yes, and for the reason why I chose that, okay, to be honest, when I was coming from high school, we didn't get, growing up from a rural area, you don't get a lot of mentorship. You're not exposed to a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
So I looking at how the farm went at home, I knew that they definitely need a solution. So one thing that drove me to science is problem solving. And when I went to tertiary, I came across biotechnology. And when I was learning about biotechnology and its application in agriculture, it made more sense to me. So then I did my diploma in biotechnology at TUT. And then I went further to do my bachelor's with TUT still, where I majored with recombinant DNA technology. From there, then, so I came in contact with the Agricultural Research Council during my undergrad. So that's where I did all my undergrad and my postgraduate projects. So from my bachelor's, then I did my Master of Science in Life Sciences, majoring with statistical genomics. And I was doing a project with the ARC that was focusing on goat growth and maternal lineages. So that's how my undergrad went. So my master's was paving the way for my PhD because I wanted to study the growth. And when I wrote my proposal, I remember after my first proposal meeting, they were like, nah, this is too big for a master's. The work is a lot. So we had to sit with my supervisor, and then we re-strategized and thought, okay, what can we do? Because I'm never going to give away my project, my project idea.
Yeah.
No, it took a lot of thought.
Yeah.
I'm not donating this one. So we had to go back to the drawing board. And then we thought, since the bigger picture is studying growth anyway, so why don't we do something that's fitting for a master's, but it will pave a way for the PhD, and the master's would help me to understand more what I want to do. So my vision became clearer during the master's. So I studied one loci of the growth hormone gene, and then I studied maternal lineages. So that gave me the history of South African goats, and then it also gave me the polymorphisms in the growth hormone loci, and to study the populations that are in the villages as well as the commercial industry.
Yeah, speaking of that topic,
I just want you to please explain it to us, exactly what you're doing, for the people who are unsure. And also, just before you get into it, how did you even decide on working on goats as your for your study?
Okay, so my first project was on chickens with the ARC, and I wanted to continue with chickens. And so when I finished my bachelor's project, then I went to my supervisor and we sat down to say, okay, what's going to be your master's project? And I asked her, I had an idea then of what to do with chickens. So I was like, Dr. Muchade, I have this idea that I can do with chickens and. But then unfortunately, they had run out of funding for chickens. So they could only fund one big project on chickens that was somebody else's PhD. So I had to drop chickens. And she said, and she said, you know what? There's a new project funding for goats. And I was like, I don't know. And then she's like, no, go think of something. There's a new, and that's what I like about ARC. They like to, challenge your thinking. It's like, we have money for goats, go figure out what you want to do. So, and that pushed me to think. And then I said, okay, my idea that was on chickens, maybe we can do it on goats. And my supervisor was like, no, go think deeper. So that's how I
You try to take the easy way out, hey?
Yeah, it was like, nah, you can do better than that. So that's how I went into goats, and I'm very glad that I took that path, because I fell in love with goats, and yeah, they are my unique selling point.
Definitely very unique. It's something I haven't really heard of in agricultural, especially the animal science aspect of it.
Nope, they are seen as an inferior livestock. Some people call it the poor man's cow. Some people say they are not important. And I was like, I'm going to do a PhD and show you that goats are very, very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let us know about this PhD. What are you doing? How are you doing it, and why is it so important?
Okay, so I'll try my best to not be so technical. So my PhD is mainly on gene expression profiling of South African goats, and then I'm focusing on growth and carcass genomics. So how it came about is the challenges that we have in the chevron industry. So chevron is goat meat. So the challenges that we have in the chevron industry, whereby we have, the supply versus demand. So there's very little supply, goats are scarce, and then we try to look at the problem. Why is it that, and statistically, South Africa has about 7.8 million goats, and we're like, no, it's not possible that so many goats cannot feed people who want to eat goats. But then so this will take me to the importance of this gene profiling, because then we thought we saw that over 63% of these goats are raised in villages, in communal farms, extensive farming. And this is where they are raised extensively. They fend for their own food. They are grown under very harsh conditions. So they have good genetics, adaptability genetics, but they are very tolerant to diseases. But the only thing is that they don't grow. They don't reach market weight. So even the communal farmers do not profit much from goats. Then that's where we saw the gap, that, it's not that there are no goats, but we have goats that are there. It's just that because of poor growth performance, poor carcass yields, then these goats cannot go into the market. uh, uh, as in the formal market, because in the background people eat goats, and some people look at it as ceremonial animals.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we can't eat this animal that was used for a ceremony.
Yeah.
And so then we thought, okay, how do we solve this problem of meeting the supply versus demand? And then we identified, even from my master's study, that the problem is growth. They have good genetics, but they don't grow. And we looked at the management in villages. It's kind of like survival of the fittest. They go out there and they figure out what to eat. Then we're like, okay, problem number one is management. So I went on to say, okay, how about we look at management? And when you look at genetics, and when you look at growth on its own, it's affected by so many things. You have genetics, you have the environment, you have nutrition. And when looking at gene expression, so gene expression is more about, as specific genes are expressed based on specific conditions. And so we looked at, okay, breed affects growth, and also the environment affects growth. So if we have animals of a certain breed that are growing very fast, you look at your Boer, your Kalaharis, they are very fast growing, and then they are raised in a particular setting. And then we look at the village goats, they are not growing and they are raised in a particular setting. So for gene expression profiling, I thought, okay, let me test both production systems, and then I'm also going to test the effect of breed. So the importance of the study is that it helps to identify candidate genes. Like, for instance, one of my chapters focused on meat. So when I was looking or screening for carcass related genes, then I picked up the immune related genes, which show an indication of the stress that the animals go through. And it has, so they are not growing because, so when you put the two breeds together, the other one expresses growth genetics because it's growing, in a nice environment. But then the other one expresses more immune genetics because apart from growing, it has to fight diseases, it has to fight external conditions. So it's important in also identifying candidate genes that can be used for marker-assisted breeding. So we had one publication that spoke about how improved management improves genetic potential, because the animals that we managed better, they grew fatter than the ones that were raised extensively.
Yes.
And we also looked at management practices that the people in the village can afford, because we also have to look at the poverty that goes in rural communities. So if somebody cannot buy themselves food, definitely they cannot buy food for an animal.
Definitely.
So we improved management so that the farmer will be able to manage their livestock better with low financial input. And so that study did prove that improved management conditions improve genetic potential. So when you have genes that are expressed, then you use them as candidate genes for marker-assisted breeding. And I'm going to be honest that it's very impossible to do marker-assisted breeding in the village.
Yeah.
Except when you set up certain programs, which the ARC has the community-based breeding program, where they can later on try to do marker-assisted breeding. But it can really work in the commercial industry. And these genes, when we pick them up, we also have genes for a higher carcass yield that can be used by producers to see that these animals, when they are raised this way, we get more carcass. So the farmers can also learn to improve their management so that they know that at a younger age, because we euthanize the animals at 9 months, and majority of them were very fat because we improved management and we didn't do any manipulations. We just improved how the animals are managed, and then they are fed. So yeah, that's the importance of the study. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you did, and that's very interesting. I know you mentioned that most people see goats as a ceremonial animal. I remember when I came to South Africa, because I'm from Malawi, we used to eat goat meat. It was normal. And then here in South Africa, it's a very sacred animal. It's not really seen as, as meat that's eaten. Like you can go to Spar or any shop and find goat meat. It's very difficult.
It's so I think for the ancestors.
Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting that you are doing this research, and then maybe potentially let me ask you. Because you're working with them, and also I suppose in your own culture affiliations, do you think that it would reach that point where people would eat goat meat more, I don't know what's the word, commercially, to be socially acceptable, especially in the cultural villages, and especially with the connotation that it has?
I do believe that it's a long way to go, very long way to go, I would be honest. But I do believe that as time goes on, it will be commercialized. And you get it just anyway, because I have, I do sell goat meat, and I have some people who would be like, no, but how do you know it's fine? Is it tender?
Yeah.
Does it smell good? So you just slaughter it and then you're selling it. So, like
you didn't do the ceremonial thing to it.
Yeah, and I was like, no, there was no ceremony. I just sell it. Like today, I met someone and he was like, yeah, I saw your profile, so you sell goat meat. I said, yeah, I'll contact you when I want to do a ceremony. I was like, no, man, you can just buy meat. So I had to sit him down and talk to him about how you can just eat goat meat.
Yeah.
And the health benefits. And I think if we go into one thing that will make it very, very attractive is if we focus more on the health benefits, because now we have a very healthy, woke generation. People are more finicky about what goes into their meals, and goat is very healthy because it's lean meat, doesn't have intramuscular fat, it's high in omegas, and so if we go into that route, then I believe that it's more easier, to get people to purchase it. Because I was saying to someone, you need high protein. Goat is very high in protein.
Yeah.
So if you focus on the nutritional content of goat meat, then we can, in many years to come, while not diluting people's culture, so we can still retain the culture of a goat being a ceremonial animal, but we can also penetrate the market in the healthy angle to commercialize it so that we can find it in Spar and all the other places.
So it needs some rebranding of sorts.
It needs rebranding, and it needs very passionate ambassadors.
Yeah, like yourself. Like yourself. And speaking about very passionate ambassadors, earlier on you mentioned that you got into science because you wanted to be a problem solver. And you also just touched on that you sell your own goat meat. So I'm sure people are like, how does she do that? Well, that is because you are the founder and the CEO of your own agriculture service company called Kea Ncube Agri Services. company. So please tell us about this and how you decided to birth this baby of yours and how it's doing so far.
Okay, so my baby was birthed this year, but I've been thinking about it for some time. I just been thinking I don't have time to do it because I was in the middle of my studies, and then I wanted to complete my PhD first before I can go into business. But it focuses more on scientific solutions, in particularly for farmers. So like I was saying, that I grew up in a very agricultural family. I saw then that, traditional farming doesn't work. Like, you just put an animal there and it's supposed to reproduce, and then it's supposed to grow fat all on its own. And also looking at how some people are so against GMOs and gene editing. So and also from my study, I looked at how can I apply science in farms in a way that it helps people to get maximum yield. So that's how the company came into being. So I focus more on training. So I conduct online workshops and consultations. Yes, then I do consultations as well. And during the better part of my PhD was also studying meat science. So through that, I was like, I grew another passion, a sub-passion of meat. And I love meat, but then I got more passionate on meat science. So I thought, okay, since I understand meat and then I understand the science of it, why don't I offer people good quality meat that is tested, scientifically tested, but not manipulated, good quality meat that they can eat fresh. And some people complain that, no, I went into the butchery and the meat is not fresh, and so on and so forth. But with my understanding and based on the skills that I acquired through my PhD, I thought, this is how I can make a change by starting my own company and then applying the skills that I have learned.
Wow, Kea, that is absolutely amazing. You are literally using everything that you learned and you're applying it in real life. I think that's a lot of people's dream, because sometimes you feel like you study and you study and it never really goes anywhere. So that's really great. So, you said that you started this company this year, and we all know what this year has been like. So
it's been crazy.
Precisely. So how were you able to start to navigate rather this company amidst this pandemic, and how have you stayed on course and keeping your head above water during this time?
Okay. Keeping my head above the water is just God's grace. But the other things that I did was when the lockdown started, I was like, what am I gonna do? Because I had to cancel. I had set up appointments for on-farm training. I had to cancel that because it's locked down. I cannot. I had clients that I had to help establish their farms. I had to cancel that. So the first few weeks of the lockdown were not so good for me because I had to cancel a whole lot of stuff. But I was like, no, this cannot be the end of it. And that's where now the permit thing came into play. So I focused more on meat. Where during the pandemic, I was like, I wanted to launch so many things, but let me take it one step at a time. And I'm grateful because as much as the year is crazy, but the lockdown helped me to refocus. So I thought, okay, let me do meat and master meat, get my clientele on meat. So I got a permit, which was very easy to get through BizHub. So I got my permit. And then I focused just on selling meat. And one of the hiccups that I got was that one of my best suppliers is just outside in like a Heidelberg, very, very far from Pretoria. So then I got in trouble with the cops. Like, no, you are from Pretoria. You're not supposed to be here. It's like, yeah, but I have a permit. So those were some of my challenges.
Sure.
But then then I was like, this is the best supplier, the freshest meat, well-studied meat, and how am I going to do it? Other suppliers are super expensive, and it means I have to up my prices. And then, I spoke to SAPS then, and it's like, then I went again. So they had a good look at my permit, and then I managed to always be going to that supplier. But on other meat types, I really had to make huge changes. Like when coming to goat meat, the prices went very high, and I was very nervous. I made huge losses at some time because I was afraid of changing prices, but it was killing a startup business. So I was like, let me just brave up and change prices, because it's really, really taking a toll on me financially, because it's like I'm just, giving out meat for free.
Free,
yeah. So the red meat industry went from 0 to 5,000. Prices changed. Prices went so crazy. I had to change everything. And I was very nervous, thinking I'm going to lose clients. But by God's grace, I managed to gain more clients, because people don't mind paying for quality. And I was like, I'm never going to drop quality. The meat that I provide, I'm not going to go to a cheaper supplier who offers poor quality meat. No. My value is A-grade meat, and I'll stick to it. So I changed my prices. I spoke to my clients and said, things have changed in the red meat industry. I have to change the prices. And they didn't have a problem, because they know that the meat is good. The meat is good and it's fresh. And then, so that's part one of how I managed. And secondly, because, so I was restricted only to Gauteng, because we couldn't do interprovincial, because I also supply in Rustenburg. So I had to stop that site for some time. Yeah. And then I resumed when things got a little bit eased, that now with a permit, if your permit shows that you are now going to work at another province, then you can go. Then I made sure that I got a permit that shows that I'm going to deliver in Rustenburg. Then I could service both Gauteng and Rustenburg in Northwest. So yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve for me. And for workshops, like I said, I had to cancel a lot of one-on-one things. So then Zoom came into place. Everybody was doing Zoom.
Yes, everybody's on Zoom.
Everyone is on Zoom. And I was like, no, I can do something about this. How about I conduct all my workshops on Zoom? So then I thought, I'll lower the prices so that people will be able to buy data, because it's going to take almost half a day or so many hours. So then I offered workshops at a very low price, and then at a longer period of time on Zoom. And our first workshop was in July, and it worked out perfectly.
Wow, that's
And
great.
I was very nervous about that too, wondering, will people be buying into the idea of doing workshops via Zoom? Because it's nicer when you are there, you're doing one-on-one, you can practically show them what you're talking about. But the first one went well, and we are going into the next one in October. So yeah.
Wow. Look at
So I had to
you.
make it.
Look at you. You have adapted, and that is so great that you're able to adapt. And I wish you all the best in your next one. Your next one. Your next one.
Yeah.
So Kea, time is not really on our side, but I'm just gonna double barrel this question, and you can answer it in two parts. You are, apart from, like, I'm sure people are like, whoa, she's doing a PhD, she's got her own farm, she's delivering. And that is not even the tip of the iceberg of everything that you do or everything that you are part of. You know, just a short little break of some of your achievements and your resume. You're a Black Women in Science Fellow, like myself, and you were also named the next Einstein Forum Ambassador, and you were named the top outstanding young person in academic excellence by the Junior Chamber International South Africa. And I'm sure there's more which I'm probably missing, but it is a lot. There's one more which I am missing. You traveled during your PhD. You went to America as part of your PhD study. So, how do you do it all? That's the first part. And number two, just as a little summary, what advice would you give to somebody who is like, whoa, Kea is amazing. I also want to be where she is, maybe not now, but later on in life, probably when I've finished my studies and apply and start my own business. So, like, how? Teach us your ways, oh master.
So, okay, I'll start with the first question. How do I do it? It's God's grace. I know this answer sounds very vague and so out there, but looking at everything that I do as an ambassador, Black Women in Science, I went to the United States, balancing my PhD, balancing business. It's only God who takes me through it. And like you said, my number one strategy that I can say, if somebody would say to me, give me your secret, God's grace, and I start my days with God. And, because things get crazy.
Yeah.
Things get so crazy. Sometimes, during the day, you have to do a business plan for your workshop in Black Women in Science. And then, next Einstein Forum, they want a financial report, and then they want plan for your events, and then this one wants that, and then you have to edit your chapter. All those things can really take a toll on you if you are not well balanced. So, and sometimes you really cannot balance everything. I mean, we're all human. So it's God who carries me through. So I really, really start my day with God. Sometimes I get super anxious, and then, sometimes I feel things are not balancing. I'm lagging behind. So that's how I do it. I have God, I have His grace. And sometimes I'm like, listen, God, you gave me all these opportunities. Yeah. How do I navigate, How do I navigate through my day? How do I, I'm very anxious because I'm falling behind, and anxiety can take a toll on you.
It's so real. Yeah.
I'm like, look,
I get it.
God, I'm frozen. What should I do? So God is my master secret. There's no other way to explain it, and I'm very happy that my mother taught me the secret from a very early age. She said, you know what, listen, life gets tough, but your only anchor and pillar is God. So there's no two ways about it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Moms are always right.
Yo, they are always right.
Moms are always right.
For the second part of the question, which advice I'd give to a person who wants to be in my field, I'll say go for it. Don't think too deep about what if this doesn't happen, just go for it. Genetics is a very complex field, I'm gonna be honest, but you need to develop resilience. You need to be, one day Bishop Keabetswe was saying that we need a tenacity of a mountain goat. So if anyone would come to this field, that's what that's what you need, and you shouldn't give up. you need to have that's never giving up spirit and don't be fearless. And I'll go again and refer to what my mother taught me, the principle of a deaf frog. That, there's a lot of negativity. When I wanted to go into genetics, everyone told me that no, because you're black, you're not going to make it. Secondly, it's a very, very complex field. So you're not going to make it because it's very complex. And there are very few people in genetics. And I said, okay, then that's where I want to go. Naturally, I don't like crowded places. So because genetics there's very few people, I said, then that's where I need to go. So I would advise anyone to have the principle of a deaf frog. When my PhD started, I was there and someone told me that, these animals, you're never going to get results. But today I'm finishing off the 7th and last chapter of my PhD of the same thing that I was told I'm never going to get results. So you need to be that, person that I wanted and I'm going to get it. And I would also say that never limit yourself. Someone said the sky is the limit, but it's really not. We have stars and galaxies, so why limit yourself with the sky? You can go higher than that. The sky is not the limit.
Definitely.
If you're tired, you can be to the sky, but us will go higher.
Oh man, Kea, I love that. I love that, and what a note to just seal off this conversation with. I specifically like that whole being the frog analogy. That one is very, very key because as you go up higher and you do all of these amazing things, people keep on trying to limit you to be like, no, you can't do it just because they didn't do it or they know somebody who didn't do it. But we are not the same person. And like you said, you have God on your side. Like, what can stop you? What can stop you?
If God be for us, then.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely go with that. And with that being said, thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation so much, and I learned a lot, especially about goats. So thank you for taking. I'm actually really glad that the chicken thing didn't work out because here you are.
Yeah, I'm glad too. I eat goat more than chickens now, so yeah.
I need to find out this supply of yours, and I'm sure anybody else who's interested, they can contact you for quality meat specifically, or if you more specifically rather goat meat, so they should definitely contact you.
Yes. So reachable on my social media pages and then on my business number, which is 060-410-4797.
Ah, perfect. And also I'll just add it in the show notes for people if they want to contact you directly.
Yes.
So we'll definitely do that. Thank you once again. Thank you so much to everybody else who's taking the time to listen to this episode. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl and with an E. Until next time. Goodbye.